morning. I'm Holly, and I'm here with the New York Pest Management Association. Today, I'm welcoming George Williams from Nisus, and we're going to be talking about the Professional Women in Pest Management Summer Gathering that we have scheduled July 11th at the Susan B. Anthony House in Rochester, New York. George represents Nisus Corp, and they have graciously agreed to sponsor us. So, George, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Holly. It's a pleasure to be here, and Nisus is very proud to sponsor this event. It's a very important event, not just for the industry as a whole, but the New York Pest Management Association, which we're avid supporters of. So when I was asked about supporting this event, myself and Jordan Brooks, we jumped right on it, and we're happy to be supporters.
Yeah, so I've noticed over the years that you and I have been connected that Nisus really tends to focus a lot, it seems, on some of these grassroots efforts, supporting, whether it's professional women in pest management. I know that you guys work with Marcus over at License to Kill. There's a couple other things that, of course, I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head, but it seems like you really enjoy some of those grassroots efforts of being involved in the industry. I know Harry usually does the barbecue, right? With
Yep.
the New Jersey Pest Management Association. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so Nisus, we call it Nisus Nation for a reason because there's an army of people out there with boots on the ground, your company included, associations at the local level, whether they be podcasts, whatever it may be in our industry. There's a lot of people out there moving the needle, and we recognize that. And the efforts that these people put forth are impacting our industry in a positive way. So it only makes perfect sense that we get behind it and we support it, and in many ways, hopefully, give it a little bit more fuel to get some recognition because a rising tide lifts all boats. So the more people we have involved in these endeavors, the better the industry is. And Nisus is a big supporter of that.
That's wonderful. It doesn't go unnoticed. That was a
Thank you.
double negative, but it's noticed. And I personally really appreciate that. Helps some of us smaller operators feel seen, feel supported, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you.
In addition to our state associations, that's really wonderful.
Yep.
So that kind of goes along with how this particular event aligns with your company mission and values. Is there anything else you'd like to expand on on that front, on that
Well,
topic?
it's kind of interesting. I got in the industry. If you look at the '60s into the '80s, women in the workforce was a booming, growth, and pest control lagged behind. I'd say probably around 1990 when I got in the industry, if you had 5% of women in the pest control industry, that was a lot. But on the technician side, it was 1%, if even that. And really now it pales in comparison to what it was just in 1990, and we're not talking about the 60s, 70s, or 80s. So there's been a lot of changes on a positive aspect, and that's what attracted myself and Nisus to this event. Nisus is a perfect example of what we're seeing in the industry because we are 33% women in our company as far as staffing, and that's a good 10-20% above industry averages for manufacturing. But if you look at the professional side, which is our office, technical, regulatory, research and development, executive positions, marketing, 73% are women. So literally at Nisus, it is, boys drool, girls rule. And, that far exceeds what industry, metrics are. So there's a lot of value in that, and there's a lot of expertise, and we're proud to be tapping into that. And I think our industry is better for it, and I know for sure that Nisus is better for it.
Hmm. Well said. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize that it was, I guess, the R&D and the admin and all that is woman dominated.
Yeah.
So at Nisus, um, I think that's really cool because
We'll have to
we're
have you come
sort of
down
similar.
and pay a visit to us in the beautiful foothills of Tennessee.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love that. Yeah. Well, and similarly here at Perimatech, we're about 50-50 women, and we've got women in
Fantastic.
a variety of roles. And I personally am very proud of that. So it sounds like
And
we share
rightfully
that in
so.
common. Yeah.
Yes.
So, going along with some of the history that you've talked about, women in the workforce, 60s, 70s, up to current day. For those who don't know, Susan B. Anthony was a pioneer in the women's rights and women's suffrage movement, and her home, we are very lucky here in New York State to have her home and her home base for some of her efforts between Rochester, New York, and Seneca Falls and Auburn and these sort of Finger Lakes and central and western New York regions. Um, any insights on the venue, on the our organization for professional women in pest management, personal connections that you might have that you'd
I
like
mean,
to
I
share with
know I'm
us?
old, Holly, but I mean, I don't have any
Oh,
personal connections to Susan B. Anthony.
oh, I
So,
just meant to the region.
so you couldn't pick a better venue. And truthfully, Susan B. Anthony actually gets, not enough credit for the achievements that she's made for American history. And not just, the advancements, of women, but also, for society as a whole. Prior to, the women's suffrage and women's rights, she was an advocate for abolishing slavery and the rights of black people. And to be a woman in the 1800s was tough enough. Then to take on these kind of things, it was a deadly task if you could look at it that way. So, to be brave and to change the course of American history like she has, and what she's done for women in the workforce, and women liberty, freedom, it is by far a perfect example of where you should have your event. So kudos to the association for doing that.
All right. So last question before I get to throw you a super fun,
Uh-oh.
random, unprepped question. So, what key messages do you want attendees to remember about you personally, or you as a representative of Nisus?
Well, Nisus is a team. So whatever events going on in the industry at the local level, we certainly do support a lot. We're a strategic partner for National Pest Management, so that's really important to us. And because National Pest Management does such a great job at the local level, we really like to work, locally with associations. So if there are events going on in a given state, Nisus as a team, if I can't make it to New York event, somebody from another territory would come in. So we don't follow typical boundaries. We just do what's right for the customer, the association, the industry. So I may go out to Ohio to cover an event, because my colleague couldn't make it. And somebody might go from California to Texas to do the same. So that's what I want people to think of when they think of Nisus, is that we're there to support things at the local level, and you obviously know us to support it at the national level. So give us a call. We're there for you, and we're there to support any endeavors you might have.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And talking about teamwork, you guys had a really big announcement fairly recently, and I know what it is. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, Nisus is an ESOP company, which is employee stock owned, and we are not partially employee owned. We are 100% 100% owned by the employees. So that is a very rare thing in the world, let alone the United States. Some companies are 20, 30% employee owned. Nisus is 100% employee owned. And that's an amazing gift, going back to the legacy and the founders of Nisus, Bud and Pat Dietrich and their family, to be able to pass this on to us is a gift unlike any other, that I've seen. And I won't say anything that I've ever seen, but when I first got in the industry back in the early 90s, it was Blanton Whitmire, which was eventually became SC Johnson Wax and then BASF as we know today. But back then, they were an employee-owned company, and To my knowledge, that, that transaction from, Blanton Whitmire to SC Johnson Wax when they sold the company, that was the first time a manufacturer was a employee owned, and now Nisus, is the second. So it's very rare in the industry, and there's only of all the corporations in the United States, there's probably 10 or 15% that are 100% employee owned. So it gives us more motivation to do what we love as employees, and it definitely puts wind in your sails. So we really want to keep giving back to this beautiful industry.
Yeah, yeah. When I heard that announcement, it was just shocking, but only in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Really, just an incredible, as you said, incredible gift that
Yes.
they've provided for their employees. Just amazing. So,
Yep.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Are you ready for your unprepped
I don't know. You're already
question?
saying I'm as old as Susan B. Anthony, so God only knows what's coming next.
Okay, so I've sort of been doing a Disney princess theme.
Uh-oh.
And fortunately, Margaret got the hardest question, I think, and she had not, the coffee hadn't quite kicked in yet, but she did a really great job answering her question. I'm gonna give you just a little bit easier question.
Yeah, could you maybe do
So,
something on sports, not Disney,
oh, well, you've got a daughter. You should be familiar with some of the classics,
I'm not
right?
I don't do Disney. I'm sorry. So this is definitely gonna throw me for a loop.
All right. Well, then I think I picked the right question for you. So, in Snow White that the Wicked Queen tempts her with the poisoned apple,
Poison apple,
right?
okay.
Okay, so the poison apple was the temptation, and she took the nice big bite out of that poison apple because it just looked so appealing and fell fast asleep. And, Prince Charming comes along eventually, spoiler alert, and wakes her up with a kiss. If you were tempted to eat something poison unknowingly, what would be that object that just looked so appealing that was you just could not resist it? What object would it be that would be poisoned that you
Oh
just
my.
couldn't resist?
Does a slice of pizza count? I know.
Heck yeah, it
uh,
does. Only if
I'm in
it's
New
from
York
New
City.
York,
How
though.
could you go wrong? I mean, geez, I don't even know how to answer that one. You threw me for a loop on that. I don't,
So if it were a piece of pizza, being a New Yorker, where would that piece of pizza be from, though?
man, that's the great thing. You could, you could walk around the block. I literally can get a great slice of pizza. I mean, I've got plenty between the five boroughs to choose from, and not to disparage New Haven or Detroit or Chicago. Everyone's got their own favorites, but I'll stand by my New York pizza.
All right, all right. I think that's a valid choice. I
Okay.
support this choice.
I appreciate it. I mean, listen, if Pizza Rat can take it, then I can take it too. So.
That's right. That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much, George, for joining us. Any final words before I close us out?
No, thank you very much for the efforts you're doing. From an association standpoint, and I go back to when there was several New York associations prior to moving up to New England, and then I moved back, and now we have one association, which was predominantly a New York City, association in northern New York, dare I say, was neglected. And the couple of events in the last 3 years that we've had up there have shown that, upstate New York region, really cares about the New York Pest Management Association, and the work that you have done up there, is remarkable. So keep, pumping all that enthusiasm into upstate New York, and we'll continue to keep sponsoring it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. I love our region. People think of New York State and they think of skyscrapers. They don't think of cow fields,
Yep.
or Finger Lakes. but I just love our region, and I'm grateful that we have so many people that are becoming more and more actively involved, and we're growing our association engagement and membership up in this region. And
Awesome.
your support has been really instrumental in that. So I just
Thank you.
appreciate you for past support. I appreciate you for support of this specific event. Again, it's the Professional Women in Pest Management Summer Gathering, July 11th at the Susan B. Anthony Museum and House in Rochester, New York. Thank you again, George and Nisus. Thank you so, so much. Very
Thank you
much
very much,
appreciated.
Holly. Have a great day.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much.